Hello everyone, it's mid-afternoon, it's snooze time. No, it isn't, we're going to wake up, we're going to have fun. I have an old school AR video to show, so that should be fun. So this is AR, A Revolution by Stealth. It's crap alliteration, AR, A Revolution, just in case you didn't get that. But by Stealth, and by that I mean I think this stuff is happening in our lives already and will happen in consumer electronics and so on, in parallel with the game stuff coming. So, I am CEO of Dream Reality Interactive. We are 12 people in West London, in White City. We started about 3.5 years ago as an immersive studio, and we've done a balance of pretty much 50% AR projects and 50% VR projects. But I spent the last 6 months of 2019 researching the immersive market, and we're skewing heavily towards AR now, because we see there's so much more commercial opportunity there, and creative opportunity as well, with the different features, headsets, handsets that are coming. I did the opposite of Alex at Niantic, in that I ran a large studio for Sony for a long time, and then downscaled to a small studio. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But anyway, I used to run the London studio for PlayStation. I was there for a long time, man and boy. I started out writing the Windows code on This Is Football, if anyone ever played that. The menus code for that, and then, but actually through that, the biggest job I had there really before running the studio was running SingStar, if anybody remembers that. I apologise now. I also did Wonderbook, which we did two versions with J.K. Rowling. That was pretty interesting. And then VR Worlds, which is a VR launch product for PlayStation. And that's me at the top in front of my favourite Snoopy picture, and that's me at the bottom on the left. I know it's hard to believe, but I was actually a recording artist for China Records, Warner Brothers, in the 90s, which is basically a blur to me. And just to give you a hint of what that's like, I've been teetotal for 8 years. So I basically did a lifetime's worth of all that naughtiness in half a lifetime. Anyway, moving swiftly on, the studio that I ran, and when some of this started happening, I wasn't running it, I was setting up various different departments and things. But we did a lot of AR back in 2003. Does anybody remember iToy Play? Anyone played it? There's going to be a video coming. And that was like early AR. It was a webcam plugged into a PlayStation 2. And this old lady on the top left is looking at the TV, and it was basically walking up to Dixon's as a kid and waving at yourself on the TVs in the window, but with things added to it. And that became, really the first sort of commercially viable AR games. And we made quite a big deal of this. And when we were working on SingStar, even, we had a camera feed, and we had some basic AR effects. So there's actually quite a long history of this stuff in console games, and it's now moving to handsets and headsets and everything else. That first stuff on PlayStation 2 was very simple. It was 2D gaming. It was really just looking for motion. So if you waved at something, you could have an impact. If you did this, we could track that and have something. But as we got to PlayStation 3, we moved into 3D, and we did iPet, which was a little pet character. It does get slightly weird at this point, because you're kind of doing this in terms of gameplay, because things are happening on the floor, but to get the feeling of it, you have to look up. It's slightly odd, but nevertheless very engaging, and it worked. And then this bottom right was Wonderbook, which was a physical book with AR markers on it, and you opened it and the camera could see it, and then on the TV screen we could make all these different things happen, like set it on fire and things like that. So this was all happening. I think we did Wonderbook by 2012, and iToy started in 2003. So there's quite a lot of history there to sort of draw on and learn from. I'm going to show a very old school video. So this was a bit of if it's going to play, this was a bit of a defining moment when we came up with, or when the team that were working on it came up with this. I don't even know if the audio is going to work, actually. Is it going to work? Hey. Hang on. It might be all right to have the audio out of here. It's just George Formby when I'm cleaning windows. Anyway, basically, you can see what the gameplay was. Fill it up with foam and then do this. One of the things that we found that was really interesting with this kind of gameplay was watching other people do it was as funny as playing it yourself. And it was kind of like the Generation game or a kind of TV show in your living room, and we came up with this whole couch social gaming thing, which I think now links into for example, what Niantic are doing with the fact that AR and social is actually very important. Anyway, that's just a bit of nostalgia. But what's been happening in the market, if you like, and I haven't actually got Niantic on here, but anyway, is some of the really big companies are getting very heavily involved in AR. So it's not just games, it's going to be across our lives, basically. And Apple bought this company that, I've forgotten the name of them now for some reason. But anyway, they had an SDK, which became ARKit, which was released then, I think, in 2017. They also bought a headset company. And this is all stuff just collated from the internet. And they've got patents in for different AR headsets and glasses, and there are rumours that there's a headset coming in 2022 and glasses in 2023. And the smart glasses market is actually sort of starting to take off. So Amazon have done some with Alexa built in and things like this. And so we can see that these sort of wearables, which do link into AR quite heavily, are happening. And then if you look at Snapchat, Snapchat is basically an AR platform now. I mean, you know, people are changing their face. It's all augmented reality, and there's a highly engaged, quite young audience using that every day. And they are going beyond just the phones. They've bought glasses companies. They bought Play Canvas, which is some old Sony people who built a kind of AR and VR game development system called Play Canvas. That's now wholly owned by Snapchat. And they've also done these sunglasses with little cameras in, and you can do these 30-second video clips that you can share online. And in future versions of those, you'll be able to layer on AR effects and things like that. So all this stuff has been happening over in the last, that old decade, the one that we just left, until we get to what's happening today. And I think what's interesting here is it's quite often we think of AR just as visuals, and it was great to see Alex's Niantic talk earlier where he talked about so many more components to it. And I think that's probably the big takeaway about making AR products and doing things. So this is my avatar, I saw at the top, but actually that's an AR thing. So it's a front-facing camera picture of me, but it's also my AR representation of myself somewhere else. And so that's something that's quite important for social. This middle one is a plug, because that's a game that we've released a couple of years ago, but that's a fairly straightforward AR game with a phone or an iPad where you just select somewhere and you can play it. It's a mini golf game. But we're also getting things like Minecraft Earth, which is now like a layer on top of maps. And I think that's very interesting because we're getting this sort of creationist stuff happening that's linked to real-world geography. We've got people like Magic Leap, who are obviously doing sort of the high-end goggles and creating AR objects within the space, and it understands the space that you're in, so it's got a fairly early feature set from that perspective compared to what your phones can do at the moment. And this is a friend of mine, Melissa. She has never been to my house, but she's in my kitchen. And the reason she's in my kitchen is because she works for a company called HoloMe, where you can get like a video of yourself. Basically, it's kind of like green screen technology, but then you can send that. I can put it here on my phone now or through glasses, and it's at the moment it's an offline communication tool, but it could end up being an online communication tool where she might actually be live somewhere else but be in my kitchen. And so AR is not just holding up your phone and putting a Coke can here. There's so many more different aspects to it. And I think that's something that's quite important to think about. But this is kind of where we are today. Who's working in this space? I've already talked a bit about Apple and Snapchat. Google, as ever, are always there. Apple have ARKit, only runs on iOS, which is very Apple. Google have AR Core, and just like Google Maps, it runs on Android and iOS. So they have two slightly different strategies there as to how to reach audience. Facebook are doing a lot in AR. So they've got Spark AR, which is a bit like the Snapchat toolkit and so on. But I don't know how many people were advertised the Facebook portal over Christmas, which is like a Skype for grannies. It's kind of like a picture frame that's very easy to Skype your family or whatever. And if you look at the feature set of that, it actually has quite a lot of AR features in it. And yet they're not selling an AR device, and the people aren't buying an AR device. They're buying some consumer electronics that make communicating, it's like a new phone system. It has AR features, and they don't even know that they're buying AR features. So to me, that's very different to the VR market, where the only way you get into the VR market is buying a VR headset because you want VR. right? That's a fundamental of the tick. I'm buying VR. With AR, it's just happening in the consumer devices that are on sale to us. And I think that's a subtle difference, and that's why I put the buy stealth in the title. We have companies like Microsoft with HoloLens. They've been working on that for 4 or 5 years. They're coming in it from an enterprise point of view, so they're much more focused on going to like Boeing and using AR to help build new aircraft and so on. HoloLens, to start with, the actual field of view was about the size of an iPad, so it was a bit like holding up an iPad, except it's here. But now that's expanding, and so we're getting more AR-ness out of those things. Magic Leap, I've already mentioned, they are working on these goggles, very high-end experience, understands the room that you're in, but quite sensitive, so still sort of early days from a mass adoption perspective. And then I've got Bose here, and Bose are very well known for audio, and that's because audio is also augmented reality, which is something we often forget. So Bose have created these sunglasses that have audio in them, and actually I went to this event, they put on this, I guess it was like a play, it was an experience called Consequences, where you were in a nightclub and you walked from space to space. They used a fairly lo-fi technology of Bluetooth beacons. You go into a certain room and it triggers part of the story. It was written by Rob Morgan, who actually works with us on Wonderbook, and his company Playlines. But it's interesting because that was an augmented reality experience. It's just not visual. So it's, one of the messages I want to get across is that augmented reality doesn't have to be visual. That's one aspect of it. And so I think AR and the coming of this revolution is actually about convergence. So we've got lots of different technologies. So a lot of people are wearing AirPods now. There are 3 pairs in my family. There are 6 of us, so 50% of my family have AirPods. I think that's quite a high hit rate. But if you're using maps and you're using AirPods, that's kind of augmented reality, right? Or if you're using Siri while you're walking along, that's kind of augmented reality. And you can see that perhaps with some visuals in some smart glasses, suddenly we're going to get to a space where there's quite a lot of extra information based on our location, based on lots of different things that's coming to us visually, audio, and so on. And when I think of what, say, Apple glasses might be able to do, I think of the Apple Watch. And if you think of the functions you get on an Apple Watch, I think we'll start to see those in smart glasses in the next 2-3 years. So I don't think they're going to be the same route as virtual reality, where it's all about spectacle. I think it will start being, my weather app also has a glasses version, and I can quickly see what the weather's going to be like tomorrow, or messages that are coming in, or the best one, I haven't got my phone on me, but the last 10 years, we've all done this, right? And we kind of look a bit stupid and sometimes walk into lampposts. That will go away at the point when smart glasses can just give us some basic directions in the lenses, right? That's the most useful use case, and it's actually a real-world thing because we do all do it. But beyond that, I think we'll also get smart glasses that will be showing you your heart rate when you're running on a running machine or in the gym and those sorts of things. So there's quite a lot of more broader use cases for consumers that I think we'll start to see coming through. I also think, I've got an Alexa here. We have a number of those in our house as well. But actually, combining voice with AR is also very helpful and really does reduce friction. And again, that was something that was mentioned by Alex in the Atlantic talk. A lot of these things, it's about reducing friction. More and more we reduce friction, the more consumers will adopt it. This picture of these werewolves, this is the Facebook Portal device. So you can scare your children or your granny, whatever. There's actually lots of different things there for people to play with. And again, nobody's gone into a shop and gone, I'm going to buy an AR device. They've bought a communication tool, basically a new phone. It's just video, but it has all these things built in. And just to mention avatars again, so how we represent ourselves, I think there is going to be a big play for the sort of standardization of avatars. At the moment, if you think of avatars, most of them are platform-specific. Xbox avatar, Memoji on Apple, Samsung have got some, etc. But I think it will be really interesting to see who gets that multi-platform avatar system, because they will own a huge audience. And that's a form of AR again. So what's coming soon? Well, I kind of try to split things quite simply between the front camera of a phone and the back camera of a phone. Front camera is a bit like it's what Snapchat's been doing and so on. They are now starting to do some back camera stuff as well. But it's a bit like a magic mirror, really. You know, you're augmenting yourself in some way. And some people might describe it as budgies with a mirror doing this. But that's what people do. But the back camera is becoming more and more important. And the back camera is going to start having a 3D mesh of the room and intelligent understanding of whether it's a chair or a person. So you might have a character or a creature through the back camera that will actually weave its way through people's legs or jump onto a chair because it knows it's a chair. And that will be quite interesting because that intelligence imbued with that character will have a lot of empathy for the player. And when those things break, that's when you kind of lose the immersion of it as well. And then the back camera stuff obviously translates to headsets a lot easier than the front camera stuff because it's a bit weird. It doesn't make sense to have the front camera. Like, I don't necessarily want to look at myself. Maybe we'll have virtual mirrors or whatever. But actually, the back camera, I think, is where the future is because it will translate to things that you wear on your face. We're starting, well, Snapchat has a lot of social media connections, obviously. We're starting to get more and more of those coming through AR. And I think, again, if you look at avatars and so on, that will be a big play. That's what will make things sticky, and that's what will make things viral and make it grow. The sort of augmented world that we layer on top of the real world, which is a bit like what Pokemon Go does, but Minecraft as well, I think that's something that will come and stay as well. So the permanence of those things will become important. And perhaps I can leave something here and it will actually stay here and somebody else can come and pick it up, or I can leave a message somewhere, or I can leave some artwork, or I can leave some graffiti. And I think that permanence and persistence will have a real value in this new AR world that we are going into. So that's that lot. Am I running out of time? Okay, I'm gonna. All right, so we think Apple glasses are coming. There's a lot of revenue coming. This number, 75 billion, that's a big number. That's why it's interesting to look at this space. Summary, it's about convergence. The handsets are coming, and it's a revolution by stealth. And there's some quotes from two big names in tech. And I'll finish there.
Dave, thank you so much.
No worries.
Wonderful. Great steer.